Hi everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Um, my name is Lina. I'm a marketing manager at SplitMetrics, and we at SplitMetrics help mobile publishers to improve the conversion rate on the App Store and Google Play with the help of A/B testing. In addition, we help to automate and optimize Apple suggest campaigns. And let me introduce Maggie. Maggie is a senior SEO consultant at Phiture. She helps companies to optimize the visibility and conversion of their apps in both the App Store and Google Play through Apple Suggest, conversion rate, and keywords optimization. Hi, Maggie. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me here. I'm so happy to be here and share all my thoughts with you guys.
Thank you. Today we are going to talk about A/B testing as an efficient tool for app idea validation. About new concept you've probably never heard before, it's prototyping. And we'll also discuss approaches to mobile A/B testing and mistakes you should avoid here. Before we start, guys, let's agree that you'll type questions, of course, if you have any, here in the chat, and we'll answer them 10 or let's say 15 minutes before the end of the webinar. If we don't answer some of the questions today, we'll prepare a special post on SplitMetrics blog dedicated to answering all these questions. We'll also record this webinar and publish it on our YouTube channel, so it will be available for you later as well. So let's start. All of you might already know that mobile publishers need to test their mobile app ideas or mobile game ideas quickly and at minimal cost. I suggest a relatively new approach to app idea validation. It's prototyping. So you may ask me, what is prototyping? Prototyping is a way to test your idea with minimal resources by creating a virtual and extremely simple version emulating your potential product. How does prototyping differ from prototyping? Well, prototypes are much simpler and take much less time than prototypes. Well, a prototype is basically the very first version of your product with stripped down functionality, which takes much time and effort. Prototype is just an image that conveys the idea of your product. All you have to do actually is to pretend that you already have a prototype and show its description, its image to your target audience. Creating a prototype takes just a few hours instead of weeks, months, or even years. Speaking of the mobile industry, what should you do if you are planning to launch a brand new mobile game or app and don't want to waste time on a prototype of a product that probably just nobody will need? It's real life. The truth is that you can easily create a prototype of an app, show it to users, and figure out whether they like it. Mobile app title, icon, description, and screenshots designed to reflect its setting and features together make up an app's prototype. You can see this on the screen of the slide. You can see several app prototypes. You can see the title, icon, screenshots, and users actually react to the prototypes.
That is a very, very interesting idea, and I do believe it's very innovative. Thanks, Lena. So I do want to know, because this is really the first time I have heard about this idea. Could you tell me a little bit more how you actually execute this prototyping idea? How and where could developers actually validate their ideas?
Yeah, thank you, Maggie, for this question. That's a good question, and actually, App Store A/B testing is the answer. Mobile A/B testing platforms like, for example, SplitMetrics, enable mobile publishers to show users the prototypes of their apps on the emulated product and search pages of both App Store and Google Play, and thus test user interest before even starting to build anything. So how does App Store A/B testing work in tandem with prototyping? As usual, first you analyze trends, check if there are already some similar apps in the market, whether they're in demand, what features they have. And Then you should decide how your app should look like and design a few page elements that would reflect the vision of your app, namely icon and screenshots. You should also think of the title of your potential app, subtitle, short description. And once you're ready with your app's prototypes, several versions of app title, description, icon, and screenshots, you may proceed to validating your app idea with the help of any third-party A/B testing platform.
Okay, so here I also want to understand, like you mentioned about validating ideas, right? So how are we bringing all those learnings? And I'm pretty interested in what kind of learnings we can get out of the prototyping A/B testing. How can we get the learnings and really validate our ideas?
Well, mobile A/B testing platforms like SplitMetrics will show users prototypes of your app as if it already exists. They'll see an app the way they see all real apps on search, product, and category pages. User feedback and findings gained from A/B testing experiments will help you actually understand whether you should build this app or it is better to try another idea. On this slide, you actually can see screenshots from our SplitMetrics platform where you upload several prototypes, several variations of icon and screenshots to further compare them on the App Store.
Okay, that's very interesting. Can you show me more examples?
Yes, sure. Let's go to the details. On this slide, you can see the capabilities of App Store A/B testing of prototypes for app idea and concept validation. You see that you can test your mobile app idea, compare a few mobile game or app concepts, and choose the one that works best. You can decide on targeting, positioning, localization, validate your features and prioritize them. You can, in case you're building a mobile game, you can test mobile game setting, character, style, and everything. Now let's go to details.
Yeah, sounds good.
So what should you do to validate your app idea? Show your app prototype to your target audience to find out whether it has a good chance of success. Start with uploading your prototypes, one or several variations of app visuals to SplitMetrics. You should also upload the visuals of your direct competitors. Then, building on your target audience, run A/B tests comparing your app prototypes with competitors. After that, you'll be able to check how many users actually click the Get button, how much time they spent on the page, whether they scrolled through the screenshots or not. And if these indicators are too low for your variation, this is definitely a red flag. And here on the slide, you can see an app idea prototype compared to already existing competitor. A/B testing along with prototyping also enables you to make the right decision in case if you are choosing between several concepts, but you have resources only for the one. Should it be a game or an app? Does it have to be an app for health monitoring or probably an app for mental health, yoga, meditation, relaxation, so on and so forth? You can easily resolve the dilemma with the help of App Store A/B testing. Just run multivariate A/B tests with different screenshots to compare the concept and ideas and select the one you should actually put into practice. For example, this is also a screenshot from our SplitMetrics platform. You can see two concepts compared. Here are game for kids and educational app for kids. And you can see the winner now. Game for kids definitely wins.
Okay, yes.
You can also resort to A/B testing to make it clear about positioning, markets you should target, and localization, whether you should localize your app for a particular storefront or it's not necessary. Should your mobile game designed for men, women, or maybe both? Should it be an educational app for kids or adults? You can compare the performance of prototypes and decide on what audience you should focus and which concept work best for you. For example, on this slide, you can see the performance of screenshots with people of different nationalities on one of the storefronts.
And here, so before you move on, so I am seeing quite a lot of numbers in your previous slides. What are the key metrics you're measuring here, and how you measure or compare those metrics? What are the key metrics that you're looking at to measure the success of the idea?
I'll tell about this later, but now I can tell you it's the average time on page, the average time users spend on your prototypes page, click to install rate, benchmarks, and some other indicators. I'll provide you with more details a little bit later.
Yeah, sure.
And getting back to targeting, positioning, and localization, here you can see how our clients adjusted their screenshots for the Japanese storefronts. And you can see here that they experience 36 uplifts in the conversion rate. That's pretty impressive. And by the way, Maggie, speaking about localization, have you ever encountered a situation where cultural specificities affected entering new markets and mobile A/B testing helped to adjust app product pages to specific storefronts? Any cases here?
Yeah, I mean, localization is always a big topic when we do conversion rate optimization, or let's say showing the right screenshots or sharing the right messaging to clients in a specific market. So one of the example when it comes to localization, I mean, it applies to all the apps. A very easy example might be if we're working on a travel app, let's say, you can imagine that US users probably want to come to Europe for a long trip. For Asian users, they might want to target, like, I don't know, they want to go to Japan or they want to go to Korea, those really nice places. So A/B testing, well, we already learned from user research that, you know, they want to go to a certain destination. If we resonance with that idea or that preference in the screenshots or in the messaging, things like that, users are more likely to convert because they know that this app really knows what I'm looking for, and they, you know, they answer my initial, like, you know, preference. So localization is always a big topic. Not only like how we do messaging, what are we going to talk about, but also the visuals element, and those are the things you really need to A/B test. Though you get a learning from some other channels, but you don't know whether that will apply to the App Store or the Google Play. So this is where, you know, A/B testing or conversion rate optimization is really important. Yeah.
Thank you, Maggie. That's really very interesting and useful. And now let's get back to capabilities of mobile A/B testing in tandem with prototyping. With the help of mobile A/B testing, you may also validate or prioritize app features. Just showcase some of your app's future features on screenshots to watch users' reaction and figure out what features of your future app you should put first. Then run A/B tests and decide whether you should, for example, add face filters to your photo editing app, or that's not what your potential users are actually interested in. Additionally, you can check what features are more important and useful for your target audience and thus prioritize them. For example, on this slide, you can see an experiment which shows that the calorie tracking feature is more appreciated by users than the weight loss indicators. So our client went for the first one. They implemented the calorie tracking feature.
Okay.
And if you're building a mobile game, you should explore genres and settings preferred by your target audience. For example, what game setting will work best? The Wizarding World of Harry Potter on just naval battles and pirates? How to find out this? Just run multivariate A/B tests. Compare variations with screenshots designed for specific genres and settings which you have previously selected, and this will definitely increase your chance of success. On this slide, you can see the winner. The second setting showed better performance, and the client built a game in this setting. In case if you have already decided on the setting, you can test various characters in different styles. Run A/B tests with a few screenshot variations and find out what users actually like most. For example, here you can see that the first variation with characters on the screenshots showed better click-to-install rate than a variation without any game characters introduced. Maggie has already asked me about the indicators, and speaking of them, speaking of the indicators based on which you'll be able to make a decision, many of them include, like I said, average time on page. It's the average time visitors spent on your prototypes page. Click to install rate, the percentage. This is the percentage of visitors that actually tapped the install or the get button on your variations page. The engagement rate, this is the percentage of visitors that interact with the variation page. And here you can see the real results of the real experiments. And Maggie, now I got a question for you. Working with a lot of apps and optimizing the conversion rate on both the App Store and Play Store, what are your general approaches to A/B testing? And I'm also interested in what App Store page elements would you recommend to test before launch?
Okay, that's a good question. So regardless what kind of tools we use, like whether we use SplitMetrics, whether we use Google Play or Apple Search as creative sets, we never ever leave the CRO loop framework, the conversion rate loop framework. So here in Phiture, we do have one framework where you use for doing conversion rate optimization. That involves 6 steps in there, a loop, concurrently like optimizing the whole thing. And let's get it simple. Okay, when we do conversion rate optimization, as a consultant, we cannot just shooting in the dark saying that let's test this and that and that. This is not usually how we do it. So we usually, the first thing is draft hypothesis, the first thing is do research. So whether that is from a user research you conduct within your app, or you do it partner with an agency, get learnings, or it's just like doing a very quick research on the internet. It will show you some guidelines, right? Well, what we should test, what we should not test, things like that. And then from what you have learned, you draft like hypothesis, because if you test, well, let's say you have some really nice idea and you just directly create screenshots and you get tied results. So there's nothing you can say about that result, right? So crafting hypothesis is very important to visualize or to illustrate why certain things happened, right? So I can give you an example here. Let's say my result, my user research tell me that for a yoga app, we should do the downward dog position, and we should put a woman in there. Let's say it attracts new users. With this thing, with this research result, I will form a hypothesis saying that, okay, if we add a woman in our first screenshot, so using a female model in the first screenshots, we can attract more users. That is my hypothesis. Why so? Because a lot of users will like to see a woman doing certain position, downward dog, whatsoever. So this is my hypothesis. Based on the hypothesis, we will create the assets based on that. So let's say I have to do a video shooting or whatsoever, and then on the first screenshots, we have a woman doing a downward dog position. Okay, we take the screenshots. Here comes the 4th step. We put it on the testing platform, whether that's SplitMetrics or Google Play, Localization experiments, or on Apple Search as creative sets. Then we put it in front of users. The users will tell us whether they really like it or not by looking at the conversion rate, whether they actually download the app. Because ultimately, when we do conversion rate optimization, we want to get more installs. So this is almost the only key metric that I'm looking at. Obviously, you can also look into down the funnel, whether those users actually pay, whether they, subscribe to your app and things like that. That comes later part. The first thing is we want to get them to install the app. And whether they want to subscribe or everything, you can do it with the lifecycle marketing. By the way, this is also something that we do in Phiture. So, well, yeah, get the learning, like it. Let's say we see installs going up, that's great. But it is a loop I just mentioned. It's a conversion rate optimization loop. So the next step is go back to learn something again, drive your hypothesis, go to create an assets, put it in front of users, and measure the impact. This is always a loop. And this is how we generally optimize the conversion rate for our clients. So back to your questions, talking about, okay, where should I put all these really nice ideas? I talked about screenshots, but there are also different areas we can put, we can use for experiment. Let's say we can test short description on Google Play. We can actually test the icon. That's a very important element for all the games to put the correct characters in the icon, especially for Google Play, because you just scroll down and just see the icon and you click on that solely based on the title, the icon, and the short description you have. So icon, title, subtitle, screenshots, all the assets that you have on the store can be tested. Obviously, humans are pretty visual driven, so that's why I would always suggest, go with the screenshots. Whatever you can do with the screenshots, especially it comes to messaging tests, visuals, look and feel, aesthetic changes. Those are the things you want to test in the screenshots, right? Or the icon, if that's very important. In terms of if we want to do messaging, we could also test it in the short description. However, I usually would judge based on what kind of test we're going to run or what kind of messaging we want to run. Let's say in your case, in a Pretotyping case, if we are testing certain elements that is pretty risky, in terms of you don't really have that element actually or that feature in the app. So if you put it in the screenshots, let's say put it in the first screenshot saying that, yay, we have this feature, can't you? And see whether users will download the app. I would consider that it's a little bit tricky. What if the users will just download the app, but they are not actually seeing that feature in the app? So those kind of risky elements or experiments, I would tend to test it in the short description. So because I believe not everyone is reading the short description. They're probably looking at the screenshots, but I still want to get the results. So it always depends on how risky that is, how impactful that is, and what exactly you want to test, whether it's a visual thing or a messaging thing.
Thank you, Maggie. Really great insights. Zero Loop is a great framework I definitely recommend to stick to. And I agree with you that screenshots are basically the most important element of your store product page. So you should pay special attention to them. And Maggie, maybe you'd like to share your take on the pros and cons of such a method of app idea validation via mobile A/B testing together with Pretotyping.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, from what you have said, I really like the idea where you can, without investing tons of money, you can have a brief understanding of what features will work, what users really like. And by the way, for everyone who are participating in this webinar, if you have any questions, do drop us a message. We will answer that later on, just so you know. And yeah, when it comes to pros and cons, what can I think of is the first thing, obviously, is the capability to test new features without investing money, right? Well, not like investing money, but like investing tons of money. So the first thing is I really like that you can validate an idea, create not even a MVP. It's just showing the screenshots to the users, right? I really like it. It could be a very good idea to validate idea if you want to create a new app or add a new feature. So let's say a typical example that I have or is talking about news app. So I don't know whether you guys are where you're coming from. Let's talk about BBC. BBC is a news app. I guess all of you know about that. But how English speakers using this app is very different from how a non-English speakers using this app. So English speakers, it's a news app. I get my news on BBC. That's cool. That's exactly what they do. And for non-English speaking person, what they do is they take it as an English learning app. So I do have my friends learning English by reading the news on BBC, things like that. So you can see there are certain demands. But before you actually develop another app for learning English, which BBC actually did, they do have a BBC English learning app. I don't know whether they actually get this idea from here, but before you actually develop that English learning app, what you can do is A/B testing with a Pretotyping idea, not only because you want to understand whether that demand actually exists, because you want to persuade your company or your stakeholder that you have to show them evidence that while this is working, people are trying to download the app if we're talking about certain elements. Okay, so you can align the whole team to work on this project with solid evidence there. That's the first thing I really like it about validating idea without huge investment. The second thing is a lot of apps actually struggle how they actually launch a new feature. So they have a new feature, they think that's great. But then the question is how they should talk about this app, this new feature, how to do messaging, right? Before you put it in front of thousands and millions of users, you want to get that messaging right? So before putting on the store or whatsoever, you probably want to test it in a third-party app store where you can control where the traffic's coming from, and then to see which messaging strategy would work before you apply to the broader audience. That's how I would see the advantage of Pretotyping. Obviously, on the other hand, when we're talking about the disadvantage, is that you can imagine it's pretty straightforward. If I click on, let's say I want to download an app that we tested in there. Let's say we mentioned, I don't know, new yoga pose in the fitness app. Let's say this way. It's just a type testing. We want to put it and see how users react to that. Then the user came to that page, that stall listing page. They want to download the app because of that new post, but they didn't find that in the app. So what would that cause? Disappointment from the user that could be happening, a mistrust of the user. Those things are pretty dangerous, I would say, because the users are coming for certain things. They're not, they didn't get it, and they will just turn away immediately. Not only they will uninstall your app, and that would affect your ASO performance, is that you are pretty difficult to get back those users later on when you have that new feature. So the inconsistency of messaging between what you say in the in the listing page and what you have in the app, that would create a mistrust. And I think that is the biggest risk I can see. Lena, I guess you definitely have a solution for that, right?
Right, Maggie, I totally understand your concerns, understand what you're talking about, but actually A/B tests are not designed to get downloads straight away. They're not aimed at getting new conversions or anything. They just aimed at getting advantages in the future. You are just checking the hypothesis, then you adjust to the results you get, metrics you get. You make some tweaks to your visuals, to your prototypes, and thus you improve the conversion rate in the future, and consequently you earn more money. I understand your concern, but there are solutions. For example, if you are testing some features, and if a user taps on this variation with screenshots that promise some new cool features, users will be just shown the window where client notifies them that this feature will soon be live, and now they can download already existing version of an app and then just update it. Mm-hmm. So actually, I can assure you that big brands that are running A/B testing experiments that are using prototypes to validate, their ideas. They take advantage of such experiments to the first reason, the main purpose here is to gather data, to gather analytics, and building on this analytics in the future, they optimize their visuals, they optimize their App Store and Google Play Store product pages so that they have really great boost in conversions in the future. You lose here a little bit when you lose some users that get disappointed, but you definitely win more in the future. So it's worth trying.
There is the balance of, losing features, losing users and getting, learnings. Before we move on, I noticed that people are saying that the slides are a little bit too blurred. Will you be sharing the slides later on and asking just for the people there? Will you be able to
how is it now, guys? Is it okay? Thank you.
I think it's okay, but for the one that you're showing, the matrix is a little bit too blurred. It's also the same thing for me.
Okay, then let's go on. I think other slides will be clear.
Okay, cool. Then no worries, guys. I also have one more thing to add in terms of a little things that you should concern before I think with pretotyping is that most of the cases you're redirecting the paid traffic or the web traffic to this fixed store listing page. So depends on how you filter the users or the visitors coming to there, that might likely or that might significantly affect your results. So if you want to run a fair A/B test, make sure that when users come to the store listing page, they don't have a particular user intent, because that is exactly what users will do in the App Store, because they come with, obviously they're searching for wild keyword or seeing in the browse traffic section, but most of them coming if you are using a traffic that already filtered by a certain user intent, that would not fairly represent what are you going to have on in terms of organic traffic. It might also create bias to whatever analysis you will do later on. So this is something that you guys have to be aware if you're using the third-party testing tool.
Thank you, Maggie. Guys, here are really great tips for a cool SEO practitioner. Maggie, thank you. That really works.
Very happy to share that. The amazing ideas of the pretotyping.
Yeah. And in conclusion, I'd like to briefly cover the 7 biggest mistakes in App Store A/B testing that publishers unfortunately still make. Guys, please let me know if you are interested in this topic by typing a plus in the chat. And if you are interested, we'll prepare a webinar dedicated to these mistakes in App Store A/B testing. But now I'll just briefly cover them. Here's the first. Here is the first mistake. Finishing an experiment before you get the right amount of traffic. In case you're an adherent of classic A/B testing, finishing an experiment before you get the necessary amount of traffic presents a risk that you'll get statistically unreliable results. However, with sequential A/B testing, the algorithm will constantly check your variations on significance level and the amount of traffic left until the completion of the experiment. That's how it works on our SplitMetrics A/B testing platform. So in case you're running classic A/B tests, just wait until the experiment gets the needed amount of traffic. And here's the second mistake. It is similar, but it's important and it differs from the first one. Finishing an experiment before 7 days have passed. You guys might know that various apps and mobile games experience peaks in activity on different days during the week. For example, business or financial apps, they watch bursts in activity on Mondays, while games, they certainly experience peaks on the weekends, on Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. So for getting reliable results from your mobile A/B testing experiments, you should capture peak days of your app during each experiment. Otherwise, you risk to get statistically unreliable results and just jump to conclusions. Here are another two mistakes. The third one is testing too small changes in design. In case you test variations with too small changes in design, you should expect that they will show the same result, because such changes are too insignificant for users, so it's better to test app icons and screenshots that differ markedly from each other. Otherwise, the results will be insignificant. The fourth mistake is when your banner ads have the same design as one of the App Store visual assets, for example, your icon or one of your screenshots. Studies show actually that if people see something repeatedly, their brain processes information faster, and this brings them a kind of a sense of liking. So they just tap on something they have already seen. So they'll just tap on a variation with the design they have seen on your ad banner, and the results won't be true and reliable. The fifth mistake is testing several hypotheses at once. It makes no sense to make multiple changes and test them within the same experiment. If, for example, if the only difference between the mobile app icons you are testing is a blue background instead of the light blue, or you have added a tiny detail to another screenshot variation, you are definitely in trouble, guys, since users just don't notice such small changes. If you make several changes at once, you won't understand what exactly affected the result. So make sure you are testing only one hypothesis within one experiment. Here are the sixth and the seventh mistakes. Mistake number 6 is misinterpreting the situation when two variations are the same, but you get a winner. Well, when running AA tests, you might be confused when an A/B testing tool is showing the winning variation among two identical assets. In particular, this is most common for the Google Play Store's inbuilt tool. But if you get the winning variation when testing identical assets, there is nothing wrong with your A/B testing tool. It's just a coincidence. It's just like flipping a coin. There is a 50-50 chance you'll get heads or tails, and there is a 50-50 chance one of the variations will show a better result. That's how it works with classic A/B testing. However, with sequential A/B testing, which is used in our SplitMetrics platform, you'll see that in such a situation, you'll see that the result is insignificant. So there will be no winner. And finally, the last but not the least mistake is getting upset when a new variation loses to the current one. Unfortunately, some mobile marketers and user acquisition managers, our peers, get disappointed when an experiment shows that the current variation wins, which they didn't expect, and they just start wasting a budget on more paid traffic in the hope that the new variation will eventually win. However, all of us know that everything happens for a reason, and you shouldn't be sorry if your A/B test hasn't confirmed your hypothesis. You now have a clear vision of what assets perform best for your game or app. You have paid for the knowledge, and you will apply this knowledge to improve the conversion rate and get more downloads on the App Store or Google Play. Thank you, guys.
I'm seeing a lot of questions on my right hand side. I would love to answer most of them first. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing questions about like when we should do A/B testing. That is a big topic. I'll come to that in a minute. But I would like to reply about Natalie's. That's amazing. You just put out there. There are actually several factors will affect how you should judge experiments, how you consider that as a win, as a tie. You mentioned it's also for all the people here. Yes, you want to estimate the difference that you're aiming, the significance level, things like that. So in short, that is a pretty much technical question. I'll keep it short and keep it simple for you guys. In Phiture, we also do the same thing, is that we calculate the sample size that we need to run the test. This is very important because if you don't get enough traffic, the result that you're seeing could be very biased or could be pretty random. So this is the first thing. You get enough traffic. The second thing is you want to see enough difference between the two variants. Say you see a conversion rate 6.1 versus 6.2, that is not enough for you. It is a very technical question. I cannot give you guys say, yeah, just calculate that thing. There are tons of calculators out there calculating the sample size for A/B testing. Based on the current conversion rate, based on the so-called minimal effect that you want to detect. If you guys would like to know more, we can definitely have another session, or you guys can just email me. I can share a lot more than that. In terms of when we should test, that's a very good question. 7 days is always a good indicator, I would say. More or less like a business cycle.
Yeah.
Generally, because we also observe that weekly fluctuations for most of our clients. We know that some apps during the weekend, they got a lot more traffic, while others like business app, they probably get a lot more during the weekdays. So 7 days is a very good indicator. But here in Phiture, we generally mention business cycle. So for certain apps, they might be very popular during the beginning of the month. Let's say, I don't know, diet planning. People used to, start in the beginning of the month and just plan the whole thing throughout the month. And for those apps, the business cycle is not actually 7 days. It's actually a whole month. And if you want to capture a very fair result without any bias, I would suggest you let the test run through this whole business cycle. Either that's a month, 2 weeks, 1 week, depends on the app. The other thing is you want to run tests. Depends on what kind of test you want to run again. If it's just a general messaging test, you want to run it in days that you don't have seasonality. Let's say it's a music app and we want to talk about we have an extensive music library. It wouldn't work in Christmas, I can tell you, because Christmas, people are looking for songs to party, looking for Christmas songs. You will see an uplift anyway. So avoid any seasonality that you have for general messaging tests or visual. That's cool. If you want to run tests with seasonality, let's say we're seeing the beginning of the year. People tend to go to gym, they download fitness app, want to keep fit, New Year's solution. So then that is pretty much affected by the seasonality. And if you want to run that kind of test, keep it in the seasonality period, but knowing that, bear in mind that learnings will not, be valid for throughout the year. And there's so many factors you have to take into account. And then back to the question is how you draft your hypothesis, how you run the test, when to run the test. For us, we always have a whole experiment roadmap for at least 6 months. Also taking all the seasonality into account, because this is something that you cannot just do suddenly without knowing what you're facing in that period of time. Do you have more to share, Lena?
Yeah, I see a few more questions here. What is a good conversion rate metric? How much should the increase be? Also, what's a good base metric for conversion? Well, there are a lot of benchmarks out there in the web, and you know that for different categories and app stores, there are different good numbers. In very general, 30% conversion rate is considered good. The average increase after a good A/B test is around 10% improvement. But we as SplitMetrics actually have cases when after running A/B testing experiments, some of huge mobile publishers managed to reach around 60% of conversion rate uplift.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, so you should definitely, it's worth trying. And I see another question here. How can we use Apple Search Ads to improve the conversion rate? Well, guys, Apple Search Ads is not about A/B testing. It serves for a different purpose. You can increase the conversion rate by adjusting the images on your first, second, third screenshots to the search terms people use. So the exact match. Sorry?
So we in-house, we also run Apple Search Ads for our clients. We, as an ES consultant, we also run creative sets on Apple Search Ads for our clients. I mean, basically for creative sets, I have an article on ASO Stack. Guys, you can just look it up for more details. I know I cannot cover most of the things right here, but the basic idea is to put like 2 sets of creatives, and the only thing we can test is screenshots. Put it in front of clients, users, and see the look at it at tap-through rate, looking at conversion rate. We can also looking at cost per acquisition, basically cost per download, if we're talking about that. Bear in mind that it is not a fair A/B testing. So there are a lot of adjustments you have to do to make sure that the traffic to that creative set can more or less simulate what you will have organically. And this is very difficult, I can tell you. This is extremely difficult. The easiest way is to put your brand keyword, competitors keyword, some of the most important generic keywords in one ad group, set up your creative sets there, and really looking at the conversion rate changes. I do have a calculator for that conversion rate comparison, more or less like what you have on Google Play, where you will see the confidence interval, confidence level, things like that. So feel free to check it out. But I would recommend you to do creative set testing on Apple Search Ads, but there are a lot more factors you have to take into account. So again, if you would like to dive a little bit more, do send me an email. You can see my email address there. I'm very happy to explain a little bit more. And talking about the question about sample size, based on my research, there are tons of calculators out there, and they all return very different results. In-house, we did build something for in-house use where we actually look at academic papers. I can share a little bit, not like right now, I don't have it on hand, but if you are very interested, do email me. I can probably share that formulas and the methodology behind with you.
Maggie has mentioned creative sets, and
yes.
I actually have an article on PPC Hero. I'll just type it here in chat, guys. I've written an article about how you can use creative sets as an alternative to a mobile A/B testing platform like SplitMetrics. You can find more details there. There are both pros and cons. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or maybe via email. You can see it on the last slide. And I see another question. How you test CTR of an icon while the Google Play experiments do not provide that metric? Well, guys, keep in mind that it's not possible to test CTR of any page element alone. It's always in regards to the whole app page, whether it is App Store or Google Play Store. And if the icon is the only difference between two app pages, then it is clear that the difference in the conversion rate is caused by the icon. And A/B testing services show those numbers as CTR of a variation. So you compare several prototypes, several variations, and if it is an icon or a screenshot or a title, what differs definitely. It is what affects the CTR and eventually the conversion rate.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Any more questions we have?
I saw another question, but I think Maggie has already answered it. How do you decide the test duration in advance or when it reaches significance? As I've already said, at least 7 days you need to cover all types of user spikes, and then wait until the test is statistically significant. And Maggie has already answered these questions. This question
is significant, and it's always a big topic because it is actually controlled by a lot of factors.
Yeah,
I would advise you guys to consult any data scientist people out there where they can explain the whole thing. But it's pretty technical. I'm very happy to explain. But it is, it's very difficult to just say, reach the statistically significant with a certain period of time, then you have the result, because that number could be changed from time to time, especially when you are peaking that number from time to time. You have that so-called peaking problem in statistic, academic, or whatsoever. And that's why sample size is really important. You have to have the right sample size. You reach the sample size, look at the result, don't wait, and that should be the correct result. If you're peaking until you see a great result, a positive result, and you stop it, that is probably a bias already.
Yeah. And by default, the significance level of 5% is often used. But you can customize this value along with the minimum expected conversion rate increase, MDE.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's what we cannot do with Google Play.
Yeah. I'm sorry if I miss any questions here, but you guys can type them here, and we'll send you the presentation, we'll send to you the webinar. It will be published on our YouTube channel. And if you send more questions here, we'll answer them in a special post on our SplitMetrics blog. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you for joining us. You've provided us with really great insights, with actionable tips that work.
Here, I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, guys, for your attention. Stay tuned. I think we'll prepare another webinar dedicated to mobile A/B testing and mistakes.
Thanks, everyone. And do subscribe, or do go to ASO Stack or Mobile Growth Stack. We have amazing articles out there. Do join the ASO community if you are interested in doing A/B testing or creative optimization. I'm on there. Do send me a message, and I'm very happy to answer all the questions. So stay healthy, all guys, and look forward to see you guys soon.
Yeah, stay healthy and stay safe, guys. Thank you. Cool. Bye.
I'll see you soon, then.
Bye.
Bye.